Well, it's my delight to welcome Megan Rose to Exopolitics Today, and she's going to be talking about her background and her amazing information that really brings in some additional facets to some of the areas we've been discussing in prior interviews and on Exopolitics Today. So welcome, Megan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I think a lot of people, for this is the first time that they've heard of you, so it would be good if we give them a little bit of an idea of who you are and your background. So why don't you tell us a bit about how it all began for you?
Yeah, so I was actually abducted twice, once at age 5 years old and then at age 9. And I was rescued. I was lucky enough to be rescued by the Galactic Federation. So when I was 5 years old, I was abducted by, there was Zeta Reticuli, which are like the little, kind of the little grays, and they are more like artificial intelligence type beings. And they took me up to a ship, and there was a tall, what we would call the race, a tall gray, but it's from the race, the Mitra, and very like ugly kind of looking beings, long, tall, skinny bodies. And they were, their language was not like a human type language, or there were no words, but they spoke in what was like noises. They were talking to each other. It was like kind of like a clicking noise. And I remember laying there, and they were getting ready to do a procedure. They wanted to take tissue samples of me. They were interested in what kind of DNA I had and things like that. And the tall gray was kind of instructing them on what to do. And I just remember the energy kind of shifted. There was this awareness or this understanding that they had made a mistake. They had like overlooked something was going wrong, and they started to hurry up. And then all of a sudden there was this big like rock in the ship. And all of a sudden these men came forward. I remember Val Nek, my rescuer, being there. And there was one other man, maybe like 2 to 3 men came into the room. They had these little laser guns, and they rescued me. So Val Nek is my contact in the Galactic Federation, and he was my rescuer that day.
Right.
So that was my first abduction.
And that's at age 5. So that's a pretty dramatic series of events there. So you sent me some photos. So those photos, like one of them, I guess, is a matri, and the other is of Val Nek.
Yes.
Okay, so one was the abductor, and Val Nek was the rescuer.
Right.
Do you remember anyone else that accompanied Val Nek? You said there were several men.
Thor Han was there too, because they are part of the same crew, so he was there as well.
Okay. Do you remember that name actually at the time? I mean, did the names stick to you? I mean, when did you recall the names, Val Nek and Thor Han?
The names I actually found out through Elena Danan. Okay. So I actually didn't know Val Nek's name. I just knew who he was by his face and by his energy, because Val Nek is an English translation of an ET language. So I actually never knew his name. When I met Elena Danan, I actually drew a photo of Val Nek, and he gave me some details about himself, and I sent them over to her, and she confirmed that that's who it was.
Interesting. So you were in communication with him. So yeah, so maybe kind of tell us what happened next. You had a second abduction experience.
Yeah. The one when I was 9 years old was much more traumatic. So that was by reptilians, but the reptilians use the Zeta Reticuli to do like little work for them too as well. So they took me again. It was a cylinder shaped ship, and they took me, and there was a tall reptile-like being, which I drew a photo of too. And these beings have the ability to kind of invade your mind. And so I was telepathically linked to this reptilian being. So I was understanding what was going on, what his plans were. If you had explained it to like a 9-year-old, I probably wouldn't have understood. But he wanted to take me through a portal to Mars, and he was going to make me a super soldier. And he also wanted to harvest my eggs, and he was going to use me in a breeding program too. So I remember laying there, they started to put this like milky white substance in my veins so that I couldn't move. And again, it was like this feeling, or the reptilian, his energy shifted. He was like, there was a mistake that was made, something was going wrong. And then again, Val Nek and his crew came to rescue me. And the way, Val Nek and the other men, they wear these kind of like super suits. And what was really interesting is Val Nek grabbed this reptilian by his throat. And, Val Nek is a trained warrior. So they know, they're trained in combat. There are these access points, I guess, right here underneath their neck. And that's how he killed the reptilian. And his bodily fluids, when it projected onto Val Nek, it like disappeared. It didn't even really hit him. It just was like absorbed into the spacesuit, which is kind of weird, but interesting. And so I was rescued again.
Very interesting. Yes, I've heard of stories like that reptilians play this role in the abductions and in preparing people for service on Mars in some function, and that they are definitely part of the whole secret space programs. Yeah,
they are.
Okay, so that happened when you're 9, and so then you go through life, you go through school, and you, I think, became a nurse, right? Can you tell us what happened, or how that happened?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Northern Virginia, and I went to college in Florida, nursing school. And so I was a critical care nurse for about 2 to 3 years. I just left my job actually last year, but now I do home health nursing. So I was a critical care nurse last year during all the excitement.
Right. Yes.
So that's my background.
Okay, that's good to know. Having that background in critical care nursing, so obviously a lot of responsibility. You have to be emotionally very mature and highly skilled to be able to do that kind of work in critical care facilities. So good to know that you did that for those 2 to 3 years. And I guess, is it 2 years or a college degree nursing?
My nursing degree was a 4-year degree.
Okay, good to know.
And so my title would be registered nurse. And then once you graduate nursing school, you can choose to be trained in different specialties. And I chose to be trained in intensive care or critical care. And so for people who are watching who don't know, those are where the sickest patients go, the vented patients, the patients who need life-saving measures, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. And where did you practice as a nurse for those 2 to 3 years?
Florida. Southwest Florida. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now, those events happened early on in your life, and you're a registered nurse. So how did all of this start to happen again? How did the contact experiences emerge? I mean, what made you decide to put energy into that?
I was taken in 2019. I was taken by Val Nek up to a Galactic Federation. It was kind of like a mothership, their science lab, actually. And I had an implant placed for communication and protection, because it's his responsibility to protect me. So I was taken to one of their ships and had an implant placed. Those beings up there, they having an implant, it's not like artificial intelligence. It's just a piece of technology that allows them to do certain things. So Even Val Nek has one. That's how he drives the ship. He merges his consciousness through the implant to drive his ship. So I was given one for communication and safety. And it was actually placed by Elena's friend, Mira. So Elena knows her too. She's an implant specialist. And it actually looks like it's not in this density. So some people would think it's more like it might look like a chip or an artificial device, but it actually looks more like a frequency that holds a shape. And it's interdimensional, so it goes in between the matter of the cells, and it allows the neurons to carry a certain frequency that's not really natural to Earth. So that's kind of how it works. But it was on the Galactic Federation, one of their motherships, in a science lab. And Mira actually takes care, she was rescuing and taking care of the hybrid children. So there were hybrid children on that ship in vertical pods. And there were also little ones too running around, and they had a certain, like a little play area too for them to play on as well. So that's how my communication or contact began with Val Nek, my ability to communicate with him. Yeah.
So up until that time, I mean, did you consciously remember the experiences when you were 5 and 9, or was this something you just had those memories stored in 2019?
I had traumas and phobias from the abduction at age 9 years old. So I didn't like to sleep alone, or I couldn't sleep for many years. That kind of thing. Val Nek erased my memories so that I could live a normal childhood and a normal life. And then when it was time for me to remember, he gave them back to me. So.
So that really was in 2019. So you got all your memories back, and so now you've been taken up to the mothership or Val Nek's mothership, and so well, how did it happen after that? Did you regularly get information from Val Nek? Were you taking up into the ships often? Was it communication through the implant? I mean, how did it kind of unfold after 2019?
The last time it was the science lab I went up to in 2019. That was the last time I went up there. And the communication was just via my implant. So that's kind of how it unfolded, getting information through there. There's psychic abilities, there's remote viewing abilities that I have. That's a genetic trait. But in order to communicate with him, I have to use the implant.
Well, yeah, this is one of the things, a recurring pattern that I found in interviewing contactees, is that many of them, once they've had the contacts, regardless of the race, often start displaying very highly developed psychic abilities, whether it's telepathy, telekinesis, some people even begin teleportation. I mean, really amazing, the kind of inherent skills we have. So 2019, these skill sets start kicking in for you.
Yeah, I had psychic abilities and mediumship abilities my whole life. But then when that happened, it did kind of shift a little bit to like a different energy. I do work as a remote viewer and a psychic too. And so yeah, that did kind of shift a little bit, and it did get stronger for me. That's accurate.
So with this implant that you have that connects you to Val Nek, how does it work? I mean, do you hear like a voice in your head? Do you get images? I mean, how does he typically communicate with you?
He can send images. It is his voice in my head. Kind of like, honestly, it's really like having a conversation like you and I are having. It's just, I'll say something and then you wait for the communication to come in, and just like that, it's very easy. It's very clear. This technology is not hackable by any of the bad guys or anything. They're not able to hack it. And if they could, that'd be really bad, because all the pilots fly their ships using the implant too. So it would not be a good thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Good. That was actually my next question. I mean, is it hack proof? Because I know they've had voice of God technologies since the 1970s, the US military, that they've been using. I guess a lot of people confuse that technology with the real thing. But in your case, because this was put in by the Galactic Federation, and they told you that it's hack proof, that makes sense. That otherwise, their whole society would collapse if all of a sudden people could hack in and disrupt their pilots.
Yeah, and it's just connected to one person. It's not a group of people, it's not a, it's just connected to one person, one channel. So yeah, that's how it works.
So in 2019, you start having communications with Val Nek, but he didn't tell you his name. You're just kind of getting information from him. And I guess, 2021 or something, that you have that interview or connect with Elena, and that's when you learn the name, or the names of Val Nek and Thor Han. Correct.
Yeah, so I had a interview with Anya Kay and Elena Denon, and I learned about her and Thor Han, how she knew a pilot for the Galactic Federation. So after the interview, I went back to Val Nek and I said, I was like, how do I know her? I was like, this is weird, what's going on? And he said, your relationship to her will come. You guys are two peas in a pod. And I said, okay, well, can you manifest something in this reality so that I know, like, I want proof. And so I went to email Elena, and, I drew a picture of Val Nek, and I asked him to describe himself in a way that Elena would know who he is. And he said, well, I'm a little bit better looking than Thor Han. And I said, I was like, that's rude. I was like, I'm not going to say that. And he said, no, go ahead. And he said, Thor Han and I are partners in crime. We both pilot the ship. And I sent that to Elena, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's Val Nek. And he and Thor Han are two peas in a pod. And I was like, okay, then that's my proof. So yeah, so that's kind of how it happened.
Okay, that's great. So then we have like two of you having similar experiences with these two extraterrestrials that are part of the Galactic Federation, who work together as a team. So that, correct. Okay. So when did you first hear the term Galactic Federation of Worlds?
I heard it through Val Nek. Yes.
So this is back in 2019, you're told about the Galactic.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I had no, I was very busy going to college and living a normal life. And last year in critical care was a very busy and stressful year. So I had no, I wasn't looking for this information or looking for aliens or anything like that. But yeah, all of that I know, it came from him about the Galactic Federation. So yeah.
Yeah, how did that kind of feel to you? I mean, you're working as a critical care nurse, and you're also getting this information through the implant from someone saying they're from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. I mean, how did you process all of that?
That's a good question. I never actually thought about it. When I was nursing, when I was working at the hospital, I would work like around 13 hours. So thankfully, I mean, I didn't really have time to think about it. But, it did kind of change my perspective on things and my outlook on things and shift me in a different direction. So, yeah, that was kind of a lot happening at once now that I think about it.
Yeah, definitely really amazing information that you would have been getting at that time. And so I guess the frequency of the communications kind of like increased or developed, since 2019, depending on where you were in your personal journey. Like early on you were too busy, but as you said, you kind of left your career. And now is it like you just got more time and you're able to process it and talk about it more? Is can you describe that journey for you?
Yeah, I left my nursing job, started working as a medium and a remote viewer, And so I think just like anything, then it becomes like a normal part of your life, where that's just something you do. I mean, it's kind of normal for me to be able to communicate with him, so I don't really think about it anymore. You know, I know it sounds so cool to most people, and it is. But yeah, it's just kind of a normal thing that's happened now.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, that's a pretty major step, you know, to move from a regular employment as a registered nurse to being a medium and a channeler. So, you know, what made you what convinced you to go down that path?
You know, quite honestly, when I was a nurse in critical care, when people are passing away, a lot of their family members step forward, or you start seeing spirits and stuff too, because you have a lot of my patients would pass on. So it got to be too overwhelming because, you know, trying to save someone's life, but then you also see their spirit doing certain things. So I just had to decide to leave. And I actually worked part-time as a home health nurse for a while too, while I built my business up. But that's kind of why too. It was just too much responsibility. It was like living in between two worlds, just yeah, a little uncomfortable.
Okay, so it's really this year, 2021, that you're starting to get a lot of information from Val Nek about the Galactic Federation and what's happening out there. So, you know, so what are some of the first things he started telling you about what the Galactic Federation is doing on Earth and the Moon and Mars?
You know, like everything is kind of ongoing, but he explained how planet Earth had been invaded by, you know, the bad guys, reptilians and grays, and how they were working to liberate the planet. It's a lot of information over a period of time. So maybe it wasn't just 2021. It was actually maybe March of last year, 2020. So that he started to explain why they were there, and they were there to help humanity. And he did explain stuff that was going on with the pandemic too, as well, and how it all kind of fit in. I'm trying to think. It's a lot though.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
Okay.
You know, the war on Mars and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of information to kind of come in, you know.
Right. Well, you know, the kind of liberation wars. I mean, one of the things that I found really intriguing about Elena's information was that it corresponded with what Alex Collier had told me years earlier, that the Andromeda Council identified that 350 years in the future that there would have been this galactic tyranny, and it all traced back to the Earth, Moon, and Mars, which
Right.
I thought intriguing. And so Lena's kind of talked about that galactic tyranny. So is this similar to what Val Nek has told you? Has he said anything along the lines of a galactic tyranny that could be traced back to this time in our history?
He has talked about the planet Earth being invaded, and how the Earth, what's happening on Earth, affects the entire galaxy. And so they had to come and intervene, because if they didn't, it would create this huge dark system of reptilian and gray control. And then of course they would probably try and go after other planetary systems and things of that nature. So yeah, that would yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So what were you told about, say, the moon, for example? Were you told anything about the moon being a place that the Galactic Federation was very active?
There was I remember him talking about how there's satellites on the moon that were placed to control the brainwaves of the human race, and that the Galactic Federation had to go to deactivate them and liberate the moon. The moon's been liberated, and they've handed it over to the Alliance and the Space Force and U.S. Navy. So, but the moon, I remember him talking about how the moon has been used for a long time by the Germans and Greys and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there was some sort of electronic satellite systems that were manipulating human consciousness and controlling us.
Right. Yeah.
So you mentioned that the US Navy. So what has Val Nek told you about the Navy working with the Galactic Federation?
Well, Val Nek was a fleet commander, and he recently got promoted to high commander. And so his job, or one of his main projects, is working with the US Navy and the Space Force to help empower, train their military, and so that they can take care of planet Earth themselves.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how far back that goes? Were you ever told anything about when they first began working with the Navy, for example?
The 1950s.
Okay. That matches the information from William Tompkins, who actually was working at Douglas Aircraft Company, and says that there were 3 Nordic human-looking extraterrestrials that were helping the Navy develop very large kilometer-sized spacecraft for future battle fleets. And that, that was very interesting, because that was pretty unique, because other human-looking groups that, say, George Adamski, Howard Menger, they were typically pacifists. So that was always very strange or interesting that the group helping the Navy, they weren't pacifists at all. Right. And so that, so do you want to comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, I know that they started intervening in the 1950s and working with the US military to, I think, and you've covered on your channel, and I'm sure most of your viewers know that there were other agreements made with the reptilians and the Greys and stuff like that too. So the Galactic Federation knew about it, and they came to kind of groom the US and help train the US Navy so that, they have quantum technology too, where they can kind of see into the future and know how things will pan out. So that's part of the reason why. Yeah,
very important connection there between the Galactic Federation and the Navy. So I'm sure we'll learn more about that. Well, this takes me to the meetings on Jupiter that I've been researching recently, and you sent me a communication from Thor Han. So I think it'd be worth just kind of like reading that. Is that something you have handy? Would you like to read it out? Or do you want me to read it out and then you can kind of elaborate?
Sure. From Val Nek, you mean?
Yes, the one, from Val Nek, yes, the one he sent you about the Galactic Federation meetings.
Oh yeah, you can read it if you like. Yeah, okay. Val Nek was there representing the Federation.
Okay, well, I'll read it out, and then you can kind of walk us through what this is telling us. So Val Nek communicated with you, quote, "Yes, I was there representing the Federation, helping facilitate things and negotiations between corporations and the Alliance. The corporations of those 3 men, Bezos, Musk, Branson, among other smaller corporations, were chosen to manufacture technology like spacecrafts to serve humanity and help defend Earth so that the Federation can hand over the responsibility to the Terran people. I've been working to train their military in space travel and navigation, and also training them to help use the technology that will be manufactured. I personally have been working alongside Terran leaders to help organize their military and choose military leaders who have the consciousness to understand the benevolent space beings and how to make peace in the galaxy. The corporations chosen are under tight, strict control. They are not allowed to waver from the agreements made. The consequences to breaking the agreements in any way I cannot say, but I can assure the Terran people that the corporations do not want to make enemies of the Federation. These corporations were chosen because time is of the essence. We need to mass manufacture spacecrafts and supplies to help defend Earth and quickly start training the Terran military, US Navy, Space Force. Please understand that it is a very large operation, and I have been working very hard to ensure the success of humanity. These corporations have made agreements with the Alliance and have agreed to manufacture the necessities in a timely manner. Their businesses in other parts of the neighboring planets around Terra have completely collapsed and been dismantled. Anything that does not benefit humanity has been cleaned out. We are ready to move forward. This is very good news. I salute you, Commander Val Nek. So yeah, that was his message to you. So, can you kind of like elaborate on that, walk us through what he's telling us there?
Yeah, so this is a really big project for them. I know they've had to make a bunch of spacecrafts and technology in a short amount of time. The Galactic Federation is giving the Alliance, the humans, technology so that we can defend ourselves in space. So Val Nek and his team are training human military leaders how to use this technology, how to use it safely. I don't know the number of, how many people they have to train, but I can imagine it's a really large amount of people that would have to be trained so that they could defend planet Earth. Because, the Federation's goal has always been to empower us, liberate us, and so then help us take care of ourselves. So that's kind of what is going on.
Mm-hmm. And the message emphasizes the short time that is available for doing this. So, why is it? Because I speculated that maybe there's a coming disaster that the Galactic Federation wants us to develop large fleets of spacecraft, but it seems that according to this message, there's another pressing reason for why this has to be done urgently.
Right. He was not really specific, but I know that Mars is in the process of being liberated. The moon has been liberated. So I don't actually know. He wasn't specific in why there was a rush.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seemed that the emphasis on getting the Earth militaries to kind of like take responsibility. I mean, I guess from that, my speculation would be that maybe the Galactic Federation is helping humanity set itself up to take control of our solar system, that the Greys and the reptilians have been kind of booted out. But the Galactic Federation is saying, well, we're helping you set it all up. You take control and good luck. And then at some point they're going to just kind of move into the background or move away, and we become responsible for the solar system. Is that about right? I
did ask Val Nek, are you guys leaving orbit anytime soon? And he said no. So I don't think it would be like in the next few years that they would be leaving or anything like that. But yeah, that's the information that he gave me. So.
Okay, all right. But there does seem to be this need to develop the technologies and the space fleets very quickly, and getting corporations involved in all of this. And very interesting that Val Nek said that they're watching the corporations very tightly, and that their previous business is collapsing. And that's very important, because I know from my research that major corporations, aerospace corporations, the big ones like General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, BAE from Europe, Airbus, that all these corporations were building spacecraft for the Dark Fleet, for the interplanetary corporate conglomerate. But now, according to the information that we're getting, that the Dark Fleet facilities and even the interplanetary corporate conglomerate facilities are collapsing, that they're being that presence is being removed. So it's like, so now the corporations that built those craft before for the Dark Fleet and the ICC, now it's like, well, if you want to continue to build craft, you're going to have to do it now for Space Force and for the Navy and the positive groups. Is that roughly right? Is that correct, do you think?
I would assume that since the Galactic Federation made agreements with them, that they are able to control how it's a benefit, because they're able to control how that technology is used and how it's not used. And you know, maybe they can only use it exclusively for the military stuff that benefits the human race, and it's not allowed to be manufactured privately for anything else. So so yeah, I think that's the benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very interesting. I mean, what Val Nek said here, quote, their businesses in other parts of neighboring planets around Terra have completely collapsed and been dismantled. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. So it's telling us that, you know, there's been a major shift in our solar system and the power balances that are there because of this direct intervention by the Galactic Federation, and the corporations are having to make a very hard decision of either just kind of watching their business collapse or realigning themselves with the good guys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a you know, a business decision. So
Right.
yeah.
And it's, you know, one of the controversies when I started talking about this in regards to what Elena had earlier conveyed was some of these businesses, people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, you know, people are very suspicious and distrustful of them, but it seems that the Galactic Federation is also suspicious and distrustful, but is acknowledging it. Well, at the moment, you know, there's no one else around, that all of the corporations that were involved in building these craft are complicit in some ways, and maybe these newer organizations like SpaceX and Blue Origin, you know, their hands are less dirty. And so,
right. Yeah, I mean, I know that, you know, the dark fleet is being dismantled and that's being cleaned out of the solar system. And I imagine that the agreements made with those CEOs or with those corporations, there's a, Val Nek did say use the word tight, strict control. I don't know exactly what's in those agreements, but I imagine, you know, when you have that much money, you're so powerful. So you can go use what you know and use your money to make anything you want. And so I imagine if they made agreements with the Galactic Federation, it puts a constraint on what they're able to do in the solar system, actually. So the way that I look at it is it's a benefit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you don't know about the contents of these agreements or how many agreements there are. I mean, it's very timely. I just put out a post on my website about this. The commander of US Space Command, General James Dickinson, and he just acknowledged just a couple of days ago publicly that a Space Command has just finished reaching agreements with over 100 different entities, you know, whether we're talking about countries, agencies within the United States, or corporations. So he's acknowledging that. And so my question is, well, is Dickinson referring to these agreements?
I wonder. I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense because, yeah, it would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, but I would assume so. That's a pretty good insight.
Right. So in your communications with Val Nek, you know, for something like this, you know, can you ask him, like, Val Nek, you know, can you tell me what were these agreements about? You know, can you give me some idea of the contents, and was General Dickinson involved in forging these agreements?
He would not reveal anything like that to me if it would put me in danger or anything like that. So I know that there's a lot of stuff that went on, but that statement is what he allowed me to say about it. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, that's good to know. So so he'll communicate information to you, and that information is done in a way where he's concerned about not exposing you to any danger, because I mean, this is real-time intel that a lot of people are very interested in, and I guess these details would be, you know, could be very explosive. So he just gives you the general picture of what happened.
Yes, basically. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So it's you know, a lot of people think the Galactic Federation is like spirit guides, or, you know, they're a military, so it's military intel, and so it's presented in a way for he'll only release what is safe for me to know.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So with this latest batch of information, was it again just like you received it telepathically from the implant as like verbal speech? Did you get pictures? Did you get images?
I actually asked him because you posted of your video posting. So I asked him what was going on because I know his main job that's one of his main jobs is to work with the Alliance. So yeah, so I asked him and that's what he told me. Sometimes I'll ask him to show me images and he'll show me images, but no, he didn't show me images with that information regarding the meetings or anything like that. No.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting because I know Elena describes a process where she can sometimes see through the eyes of Thor Han, and that's how she gets images. Is that similar to the communications you have with Val Nek, that he'll allow you to see almost through his eyes?
Yeah, he'll allow me to do that, and he can also see through my eyes too. So yeah.
Okay.
Like that.
Well, that's amazing. So it would be good at some point if he gives you images of the facility on Jupiter, like that, where the meetings were held, anything about that, like how big was the facility, and where exactly in Jupiter's atmosphere that your facility be found, because it sounds like this facility in the upper atmosphere of Jupiter is very important for forging these kinds of galactic agreements.
Right. I don't know what it looks like or anything, but I know that it's like a neutral ground for many different races and different space programs and everyone to meet. So it's kind of like a safety zone.
Yeah, it's very interesting in going through the years of contactee reports. It seems that typically it's Jupiter or one of Jupiter's moons like Ganymede or the rings of Saturn, that these seem to be places where there are major meetings and get-togethers where they decide the future of the solar system or of Earth, or different extraterrestrial groups kind of reach agreement. So that's very interesting that again we have this meeting and it's Jupiter that is cited as the place where it was held, and it has major consequences for our entire solar system. Yeah,
it does. So but it it looks positive. So everything, Val Nek was very excited to tell me what's going on, because it's a big step. There's been a lot of wars, and it's a big step that Earth is now ready to be trained to defend itself. It's a big deal. So so yeah, I know he's been really excited about it. And it's good news because it means that the the bad guys are being cleared out, that we're being liberated. So
yeah, well, it's very important, the information you're getting and that Elena is getting, because I find it very difficult to find real-time intel on what's happening in space. And so it seems like the Galactic Federation is one of the major players, and it's working directly with you and with Elena to make this information available. Now, I guess the obvious question here is that because they don't trust governments and militaries to reveal the truth, so they choose to work with you knowing that you will reveal it and people who are ready will find this information?
I'm not sure of the exact reason why. I mean, Val Nek and I became friends after he rescued me. He's my protector. So yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of smart of them to reveal it through people like me and Elena, because we don't have any ulterior motives or other interests other than being truthful. So that's probably part of the reason why.
Great. All right. Well, so obviously these meetings in Jupiter are something that people are very interested in. And so confirming that, with more information, more updates, that'll be great. And I'm sure you'll kind of let me know if something comes up.
Yes,
okay. You sent me also another update just recently on August 20 about the moon. Shall I read that out and then maybe you can
Sure.
Is that okay to read out, and then you can elaborate on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is your update from August 20. The moon. The moon was liberated some time ago and put in the hands of the Alliance. The US is in charge of it, in charge of arranging all the different countries on the moon. There are sections on the moon, safety zones where meetings can take place between delegates. There are technologies being released and tested on the moon. These technologies from the Galactic Federation of Worlds are put in the hands of the Alliance to be used in service to humanity. The use of these technologies, the agreement to use them is very strict and must be adhered to. There are bases there. Galactic Federation of Worlds is in orbit there, training them. So that was the message. So do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I think even in the Jupiter agreements, when he talks about the technology and the spacecrafts that are being manufactured, the US military, the US Navy and Space Force, they're being trained with those technologies on the moon. So, so yeah, and I know he talked about there's difference. The Alliance is kind of in charge of the moon right now, and they've made certain sections where other countries can come and make agreements or organize and plan things, and different space programs can come in those sections too as well.
Very important that this helps confirm what I suspected about the Artemis Accords, that that is a kind of multinational framework for taking control of the moon and taking control of the solar system through the different nations that sign on. But the US is like the hub, like they're bilateral agreements. Every nation that signs under the Artemis Accords signs an agreement with the United States. So the United States is like the hub where you have all the different spokes on a wheel. Right. So that's very interesting that the US is playing this role. And the Galactic Federation is working with the US and with the Alliance. Now, I assume that means Earth Alliance. You know, what do you know of the Earth Alliance?
I know that it's the US Navy, the Space Force, and Galactic Federation working together. So, so yeah, but they've been working to kind of liberate us, and the Galactic Federation has been training them and giving them, teaching them how to conduct themselves in space or in the galaxy and make peace between other space beings, benevolent space beings, and things like that. So, so yeah, that's kind of what I know about them.
Okay, so a lot of the information you've shared is, you know, is very optimistic. It presents a future where humanity is on the verge of having a lot of these incredibly advanced technologies that were previously used in secret space programs exclusively for the benefit of the dark fleet or the deep state and for kind of elites, but now it's going to be made available to the rest of humanity. So how do you feel about that, you know, in relationship to what's happening around the planet at the moment, where, you know, people are very caught up in the negativity of, you know, the lockdowns and all the stress and all of the uncertainty? Is this just the Galactic Federation giving us hope at a time where, you know, with our planet is almost going through like a dark night of the soul?
Right. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's important to pay attention to obviously that information. I don't pay attention to the news, or I don't watch anything like that. And luckily I live in Florida where there's no mask mandates or anything like that. But I believe a lot of the information on our televisions and stuff like that is run by like 3-letter agencies and stuff like that. So I find it, you know, there's counterintelligence and then there's intelligence. So I don't pay attention to you know, the other stuff. So
yeah, very, very, very important. So yeah, just focusing on that positive vision. Well, one of the things that I've discussed in my last book and what I'm doing in the future, I'm doing another webinar on a Star Trek future. So, you know, what do you know about that? I mean, was Star Trek is something that you are aware in some connection to what is unfolding at the moment?
You know, I've never seen Star Trek.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've never watched it, but I know, you know, I know that the Earth, or the goal for Earth, is to have the ability to travel through space, defend itself in space, become a planet that is federated, working together as one, you know, one species for the benefit of everybody. So that kind of world peace kind of outlook. Yeah.
Okay. So what about you in the future? I mean, what can we expect from you? Are you going to continue putting up videos? What are your plans and any future events you want to tell my audience?
I will continue doing my remote viewing work. I help find missing persons, missing animals. So I'll continue to do that. But yeah, I will be making more YouTube videos and giving information and things like that. So.
And if people want to contact you or find out about your information, where do they go?
My website is meganrosemedium.com, and that has my contact info there. So.
Well, thank you. Perfect. Well, I look forward to more updates and learning more about what information you're discovering as you do your psychic work as well. Very interesting. So thank you for being on the show, Megan.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So
that was Megan Rose. If you want to learn more about my upcoming webinar, Our Star Trek Future, then you can just go to exopolitics.org, and there are some notices there with more information about the material that I'll be covering. So thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to Exopolitics Today.